Today's life advice was presented by Modelo. Modelo, brewed for those with a fighting spirit. Life advice, lifeadvicerr@gmail.com. Okay, let's get right to it. Although maybe let's not get right to it because, man, this Bortles saga. Yeah, here I had the emails ready to go, and then I'm like, wait. So the intern followed up. He's pissed.
Oh man.
Yeah, right. We might put a bow on this one after this. Other people have suggested this should be an entirely new segment. You know what I don't think I want to do is have people blindly accusing other people of stuff, and it's just constantly reading emails of people being accused of shit. Because the rarity of that was that we did it that day with Big Cat, and then I was like, oh, that Bortles one, because he's friends with Bortles, and then we got Bortles on the phone, and then we got him on a Zoom later on. There's not a lot of famous people that we're going to have access to that can join us twice in the same day, 7 hours of separation.
That's fair.
So shout out to Blake for his easy schedule.
I also don't think we're trying to like narc on people left and right.
I don't want to do that.
Like, we don't want this to turn into like punked, like got you edition where like, hey, all of a sudden Russillo show calls you up and it's like asking you about stuff that happened 5 to 10 years ago.
Right.
Did you punch a guy in a Publix one time? It's like, I don't know, man. I think so. Maybe not.
And some of their claims will be false. Okay, so here's the follow-up from the intern. It was 100% Blake. I'd go on the stand tomorrow. Forgive me for confusing the color of his Raptor from 7 years ago. Here's the problem.
I mean,
if this were a movie with a courtroom scene and you said the Raptor was white and he had pictures and a registration and a VIN number of a black Raptor that was never white, the jury would never believe anything else you said. All right. Done. It's just TV shows. My Cousin Vinny, no way that would hold.
That's exactly what I thought. I think you need some thicker glasses, dear.
Right. Okay. So I'm going to read it with some tone because, again, that sentence is, forgive me for confusing the color of his Raptor from 7 years ago. It was this huge tire that hit the back of the car. So there's a small chance it didn't register with him that he'd hit me, but that doesn't explain why he would stop for 5 seconds and look down at me. Again, Blake's position was that there was so much tint on the windows, 5:30, sun isn't up yet. There would be no, I don't know. I don't know about that. I think there's certain lighting straight at somebody through the windshield where you could actually make eye contact. I was a nervous intern. I didn't want to rat anyone out, ! What if I told on him and it got back to Blake, then an intern ratted on him for a hit and run? How would that have played out for me? It's very dismissive to say I should have told on him and everything would have been sunshine. I 100% agree with the emailer on that one. I think maybe my position got lost in all the back and forth with all the different voices that we had going on. And then Blake suggesting that no one was going to say anything to you. You should have just told on me. I think that's all bullshit. You're an intern. It's Blake's going into his second year as a top pick. All right. At that point, you're like, man, this Blake, remember 2016, this Blake show? Like, you thought you maybe had something. So I agree with the intern on this one. Anyway, final spot here. I got a lot of love for Blake, but he's not owning his side of the street. I'd like an apology and maybe a white Raptor or maybe a black one.
Yeah, he's a funny guy. I thought, I mean, as mean as Big Cat's been to me in the last 2 days, I thought he actually had a good point when he was like, you could just be like, at the end of the day, you didn't have to like run up and be like, hey, somebody just hit the car. You could just be like, hey, listen, one of the players hit the car. I just want to let you guys know, blah, blah, blah. And then you could also kind of not give him up. And then, I don't know, maybe that would have been fine. But I mean, it wasn't like you had to just be like, Blake Bortles hit the Raptor right now, or hit this car with his Raptor right now. Like, I think there was a way where you could sort of maintain some honor by not giving it up and just be like, hey, I know we got an inventory here to keep track of. One of the players dinged this thing on the way out. I don't know. I think there was a way to do that. I don't think it was either tattle or lie.
Big Cat's really giving you the
emailer.
Sorry, go ahead, Ceruti, and then I'll jump back to Kyle here.
No, I just say I think if we're picking sides here, like I love Blake, but I don't know why the emailer would lie about this. I think it's very easy for Blake to just not remember because it wasn't a major event in his life. Like this emailer,
yes,
like he remembers this vividly.
His trajectory
changed. This is a core life memory for him. Like I don't think he's lying about this. So this isn't an anti-Blake thing. I also think like if you put Blake on the stand, he'd probably be like, yeah, it could have been me. I don't know. I don't really care. And it just isn't a big deal to him. Where for the emailer, he's been telling the story probably since it happened.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it sucks because then we got another guy emailing and saying Chad Henne hit the car. I've had some experiences with him many years ago, and that sounds right on par. So, again, we don't need this. We don't need this for the public figures out there. We got to just start firing in because well, like Chad Henne bumped into a guy late at night in his 20s. Be like, yep.
Who is this guy? Who's the other emailer? Like, did he give any other information on himself?
Like, no, that's it.
Why would he know?
He's the third emailer.
Just another guy that ran into Chad Henne one time has got a bone to pick.
Yeah, he's like, no, it's Henne. Henne sucks.
It's definitely Henne.
We were at it.
Oh my God.
We were at it In and Out 3 a.m. and he was a dick. And so, again, no, that's not in the email. But yeah, back to real quick. You mentioned it, Kyle. Big Cat just leaning into you this week. What's up with that?
All right, what can you do? I mean, you win some, you lose some. I just really didn't think. I was like, there's no way he's bringing this up. And then, within like the first 30 seconds of his life advice, fuck, he's going to do this. I thought we'd all move on, but nope. We decided to do this right here on this segment of life advice.
Well, let's move on then.
Yeah.
I don't want my guy Kyle to be bummed out here. Okay. This may not be that interesting, but it's sufficient. 5'8", 140, college sophomore. My sophomore year starts in a few weeks. I'm planning on joining a frat. Dude, don't call it frat. I think it's a great way to have a lot of fun and meet people while building valuable connections, experiences that will help down the road. My grades are good and my classes are easy, allowing for some flexibility time-wise. However, I plan on working in the sports world post-school and have commitments writing sports for the school paper and my website. Look at you, man. This guy's a real go-getter. I would hate to see those commitments go down the drain due to the pledging process. How hard is it to balance all of this, and how do I manage time better? Any advice would be appreciated. All right, look, if I could do it all over again, there'd be one simple fix that I would do to my time management, and that would be before I go back to the dorms to do stuff that's never that important. But I was the worst because I was finally out of the house. I was a little, I was fairly sheltered, growing up on Martha's Vineyard. Like, so just being even in a place like Burlington, Vermont, like the first month or so, I was like, I made a huge mistake. This place is way too big. Like think about me and I actually at 18 was like, I can't handle it. There's way too many people. This is too much. And then after like another month, I was like, I can't believe I actually felt that way. Like, this place is awesome and whatever. But like, I couldn't believe people delivered you food late at night. Again, back where I was from in the early 90s, vineyard winter, like, if Cumberland Farms was closed, you didn't have food at the house. Like, that was pretty much it, dude. Yeah. So, there was just a lot of stuff. I was very, you grow up in Martha's Vineyard again, you're just going to be a little different. And I was definitely different in the beginning. So if somebody was like, hey, we're headed back to the dorms to throw a ball at stuff, I'd be like, wait, you guys are going to go back and throw stuff? I'm in. I'd be kind of like an aunt. Yeah, like if I had on again, off again girlfriend, and then you'd be sitting there like watching some show on VHS because you didn't have cable in the dorms, and then I'd be like, what's going on outside? I'd be like, oh, dudes are doing it. What are they doing? They're just doing dude stuff. They're talking to each other. Be like, hey, I got to go. There's guys outside doing stuff. Obviously, Sega hockey took up a big part of that. Roommate broke his controller when he lost to the Rangers. Parents immediately sent him a new one. Must be nice. I wanted to hang out with dudes doing nothing more than anyone you've ever fucking met. All right. It didn't matter. I'm like, what are you doing? Nothing, and sitting and staring at each other. In. So on top of that, I was pledging, and I had this stupid fucking, you want to talk about one of the dumbest things I ever thought was relevant? I was like, if I do a really good job during pledging, Hell Week will be that much easier. Here's the mystery behind that one. Hell Week just sucks. I mean, for most fraternity, I don't know how it is now, but back then it sucked. Fucking sucked. And I remember too, not realizing that Hell Week was only like really 4 nights and not 7. And I think after 2 nights, I was like, how the fuck am I going to make this another 5 nights? And then another pledge who had added like an older brother was like, you idiot. It's only 4 nights. Like, nobody would make this for 7 nights. And I was like, oh my God, it's great news. But it didn't matter. Like, nobody was like, hey man, you were super into pledging and you did a great job. And you didn't, you answer the phone every time you came down, you got all your signatures, you did everything the right way. Let's make sure Russillo has a just breezy Hell Week. No, it's going to be 5 a.m. You're going to be listening to the Apocalypse Now soundtrack. You're going to be on your knees for hours and hours and hours. You're basically fainting. It's fucking like our thing, our thing wasn't like the roughest. We would hear shit about like the South and the old school guys. You're like, that just sounds like, why would you even want to do that? But then you just do it. Again, I'm not I'm not asking for anyone to be impressed by any of it. It's just what it was. But the problem was is that I cared about that because I was like trying to avoid this awful thing at the end of pledging more than anything else. Like I was just like, and here's the problem. Like I had a guy who was my roommate who stole another brother's car and did donuts on another fraternity's fucking lawn. And they found out about it. And like, it wasn't like, hey, don't beat on Russillo, beat on this. It's just, no, we're just in the basement. It's just on. It's just what's going to happen. So I don't know what pledging's like now. I don't know what that house will be like now. Hopefully for you, you'll be able to avoid some of those things. But if I could do any of it over on the time management thing, despite trying to be robo guy and it not fucking paying any dividends whatsoever, and granted, knowing me, if you know me like Ceruti does, be like, oh, you got competitive about it. It was like, I want to be better than everybody else at this whole thing. Like that checks a lot of boxes. And it was a massive waste of fucking time, as I've tried to emphasize that over and over again. Before you go back to all the distractions, while you're still on campus, after that last class, if I could do anything over again, and I tell anybody that I know that's younger that's going away to school, stay on campus for another hour or two. It doesn't mean anything. You know, depending on how your schedule is, if you're early or if you're a late guy, if you're an early guy, you could be done with classes at noon or 1. And if you just stayed and went to the library and made yourself do shit to stay on top of all the stuff that you have to do, all the pages you have to read, all the, you know, granted labs are a little bit different. But if I could have just convinced myself, hey, before you go back to all the fun shit and the distractions and throwing a ball and looking at dudes that are looking at other dudes, just stay at the library. And instead of getting back to the dorms or your apartment at 1, you get back at 2 or you get back at 3. And nobody's going to listen to this because I wouldn't have listened to it either. But it just would have been so simple because I would have just been putting in little bits of work. And now I do it all the time. Like when I'm doing my college and NFL stuff, I'll be like, hey, I'll bang out a division tonight. I don't do 8 fucking divisions the night before week 1. All right. Now I would have back then, but if you can make sure on the work, the actual course load stuff, right? Staying on top of your classes, if you can prevent yourself, maybe you have no friends and none of this matters. So good for you, but stay on campus before you walk back to where you live. Because once you walk back to where you live, there's a million things going on. And for me, everything was better than reading at that time. So there you go.
Yeah, I wasn't in a fraternity. I did quit that Latino one, but like I only did a couple weeks.
That was a gang more than anything, wasn't it?
Whoa. You got to be careful with that. No, I think.
Sorry.
I think.
Retract that.
Yeah. A beep. No, it was just regular life, even in college. When junior year, it was like I would come back and I would call those like burned hours. Like I was always early. I liked working outside too. So even like in the summertime when I had my job, I was out by like 3 o'clock, 2 o'clock. Nobody else was around. Like the workday was over. But even in school too, like everyone always had like a 3 o'clock class or something. But I always got my classes done early. And then I'd be like, you know, I would just kind of burn 2 or 3 hours. So yeah, I would 100% agree with you that towards my junior year, near the end and senior year, I would just spend those burned hours in the library or whatever. And that really helped me manage everything. And I left with a 3.5 in my major, which is all I'm going to discuss.
Wow.
Hey-o.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, just at the library, all the stuff, it's right there. The problem with finals week too is like, you know, the 2 or 3 weeks leading up to finals, the library became the best place to hang out.
I know.
You want to get anything done. It was like awesome. Be like, hey, I was deciding to be like, I'm gonna bomb this test, but I met this girl from Willis. I'm like, oh, cool.
I remember my freshman and sophomore year, people would be like, I'm going to law. Now, like I was a communications major. I'm not trying to knock on a communications major, but it's not terribly difficult. So I didn't have like a ton of work to do. It wasn't like nursing or business or whatever. Like I feel like, you know, I kind of knew where I was at, but people would be like, oh, I'm going to the library for that. Like, I can't do anything. I'm like, that's so lame. Like, what do you mean? You can't just like, you have to go to the library to get stuff done. I just like fully didn't understand the concept until like my junior year when I was like, wait, it's actually kind of dope here. Like it's quiet. I can get stuff done. I could read. Like it's like you're in a Zen moment. Cause I'm the kind of guy, I have to be in the moment when I need to get shit done. If I'm not in the right headspace, like if I've got other shit going on, I'm just going to be too preoccupied with other stuff. So, I was late to the library game and how amazing it was. And then I honestly became a way better student in the second half of my college career than I was in my first half. Because I think the first half, freshman year, I think I had like a 2.2 and I got a D in Spanish because like I ended up taking an extra elective in high school that bumped me up into like the elite level Spanish class. I didn't speak any Spanish, and first day the professor comes in and doesn't speak any English. I didn't even have my book yet. And I'm like,
oh
shit.
no.
So it was like a hard awakening. So I
Can
didn't
I have
do,
a piece of paper,
super
guy?
great. yeah. You can I bump a pen? Yeah.
Hey, do you have just one? No, the pen is the one single sheet of paper on the first day of class, guys. Like legend. Just be like, you couldn't fucking buy a mead with 100 pages in it. Like, you have none. You have 0 pages. You own 0 clear pages as of right now. Your first day on campus. By the way, the Spanish thing's hilarious. I did the same thing in French. I was like, I've been taking this 5 years. I'm good. There was like 7 levels of French. And I was like, I'm just going to bang out this language requirement for my major. And I took the 7th level French of like, no problem. They weren't just speaking fluently. They were writing short stories. And it wasn't just being graded on grammar. There was actually like how much depth was there in your story. And she was like, after a month, she's like, what the fuck? You have no chance. She's like, you might as well not even show up. You're getting an F. Like, it's just not going to happen. So I dug a massive hole to start my career on course selection on top of everything else. So, all right, let's keep it moving here. Another one. Let's be efficient with our time. There you go. Another lesson. This one's a little bit longer, but I think it's good. 50 years old, 6'1", 232, 485-pound squat. You're squatting 485 at 50 years old? Jesus. 400-pound bench, 500-pound deadlift. Been a fan of the show for a long time. Great stats, man. And that might just be the end of the email. I don't want to know anything else about you. Been divorced now for around 8 months, 15-year marriage. The ex and I simply grew apart, fell out of love in the last 4 to 5 years of the marriage. Our main priority remains the child that we have together. We have a great relationship, still focusing on raising him together. The divorce process where we live required everyone to take a parenting class before the divorce can be finalized. Wow. You guys heard about this?
I've never heard about that.
No.
That's almost weird. That's almost like getting the car and then getting your driver's license. There's an argument to be made. Some people should be taking this class before they have the kid. All right, so that's interesting. So anyway, this was online with about 30 people with breakout sessions with parents that had kids of similar ages. I can't tell if that's the best or the worst. I know which way I'm leaning. It lasted an hour and a half for each class, 4 straight weeks. By the end of the last class, one of the women that had been in my breakout class each week sent me her phone number, and we went on a date soon after that. Ew. She wasn't physically what I would normally see as attractive. Short, sub 5 feet. I've dated a couple really, really short girls.
Gymnast?
I don't know. There may have been some movement studies in their background. Okay. Short hair, very average appearing body. This guy's being pretty straightforward.
Man.
Yeah. Well, look, this guy's throwing around, what are we talking here? 1,400 pounds on a day. So I don't know what he's used to. All right. But we seem to have a bit of connection in the class. She has a cute smile. So we figured, why not? That first date in over 15 years was super anxiety filled, but at least I'd avoided having to venture down the online dating road or trying to hit on someone at the gym or the grocery store or something. But the first date went really well and started things down a really fun road. We both had a lack of physicality in our marriages. Hear that one. We were very much enjoying making up for that lost opportunity every chance we could get. We're talking about banging.
Congrats.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She is also very active and got me back into hiking more. And she also plays competitive tennis. So I started playing tennis for really the first time, which for a gym meathead like myself has been a great experience. I fucking love tennis. I think every other week now I'm thinking about getting lessons. This has been going on for a while.
Top 3
I don't know if
sport
anything's
to play.
Top 3 sport to play. Give us your other 2 real quick.
I can't watch it, but I love playing it. Pick up hoops is in there. And then, I don't know, maybe golf, I guess, if you like golf.
I think it goes racquetball, beer pong, tennis. I think that's the way it goes.
Beer pong. All right, well, I don't know. Loose sport definition.
Racquetball, clear number 1.
Racquetball is a good call. Yeah, or pickleball, whatever you like, kind of those things.
No, racquetball.
I played racquetball against a completely out of shape guy, and he knew every single angle. And I was in my 20s. I was like, I'm going to smoke this guy. He destroyed me. And I went,
You've had this stance for a while now, but I think it's just a bad stance by you. That's all.
I'm not saying that I'm right about not liking racquetball. I'm just saying that the one time I played it, I thought this guy wasn't even close to being the athlete I was in my 20s, and I was just humiliated by him. And he was kind of getting off on it a little bit. And I was like, all right, I think we're done here. I just didn't know how to play, Anyway. All right. So this guy picked up tennis pretty quickly, and he's become pretty decent in a short amount of time, and it's been a great outlet for his competitive nature, playing against her and some other guys I've met at the racket club. Somewhere along the line, and then the first few months, caught up in the whole emotion of being wanted and desired and having that physical connection that had been completely absent for the past number of years. I think there's probably a lot of people I could totally understand how you would land on that. I made the mistake of using the love word, to which she reciprocated.
Oh, man.
All right. So now a couple months later, I could tell she continues to be progressing further into our relationship. Well, I'm starting to have that initial euphoria of the whole experience wear off. The hiking, tennis, and yes, the sex. Still a lot of fun. But when she told me she loved me while we were spending our first weekend out of town together last weekend, it felt like I was being stabbed in the spine.
Oh.
Not the reaction you want to have internally when somebody tells you that they love you. I was boxed into a corner, say nothing and deal with the inevitable aftermath and super uncomfortable conversation that would have ensued, or just lie like I did to buy myself some time to figure out how to approach things. We did recently have, you're kind of, you're doing a weekend together, you're away. That would throw a slight detour in the activities if you're like, you know what, I'm kind of not in love with you. Despite what I had said earlier, just to be straight, just want to keep it 100.
Yeah.
Do you want to get apps? Not great, but I get how that happened. We did recently have a pretty uncomfortable conversation after she suggested we finally get her kids together with mine. And I told her that was completely off the table, and I was nowhere near ready to do that, even after having vaguely previously discussed the idea in the past. So she may have some inkling that things have changed a bit for me, but rescinding the love comment would, I'm sure, have felt very out of the blue. Yeah, that's legend status. If you could be like, you know what, I'm not actually in love with you. It's weird.
Remember when I said that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just having a weird day.
Can we just rewind?
Fuck. So my question is, how can I, or maybe even can I, pump the brakes on things? I definitely enjoy hanging out and grabbing a dinner out, the hiking, the tennis. We just signed up for a mixed doubles tennis league, which starts in a week or so that I'm looking forward to. The sex remains pretty great, although the cuddling business is becoming less enjoyable all the time. Our man hates to cuddle. It's probably because he's at 232 in those numbers. He's probably not as flexible, so his muscles cramp. I get it. But I say that knowing I can't continue simply leaving things on cruise control and not reining things in somehow. This just seems unfair to her. Do I straight up tell her that the initial love comments came at a time of initial post-divorce delirium and that I'm just not sure how I'm feeling now? Do I need to man up and simply break things off, keep things going, but slowly pull back on being available at her every moment? I'm not with my son like I have been. Use the kid as an excuse. Part of why this relationship has been great is it simply avoided having to get back out there into the dating scene, right? The get back out there phase. While I consider myself fairly attractive and have lots going on for me, hey, good job, decent shape, and physically attractive, and generally have my shit together, I'm not exactly a player and don't enjoy the thought of picking up chicks. So there's perhaps some hesitancy to mess this up for that simple fact. So curious if there's any middle ground for some recession, but still maintain the fun stuff, and I'd be okay with giving up the sex portion as well, or if this seems like an all or nothing deal. Any advice and wisdom the three of you guys can pass along would be greatly appreciated. All right, a lot going on there. First of all, I have a lot of respect for the fact that the worst thing you can do after a breakup, and in this case, far more serious, talking 15 years, marriage, divorce, and all that shit. One of my buddies who have been married a long time will ask me about divorce, and they'll, not that they want to be, but I'm just saying like the concept, and then they will kind of evolve and they're like, I can't fathom going out to a bar and having to like talk to somebody to wonder if it's going to go anywhere. All right. So it sounds like, I think that's really important for anybody that goes through something traumatic. And, it doesn't even have to be a divorce. It's like, just sitting around moping around, because I've done both. And I can tell you one's way worse than the other one. So now this kind of comes down to like what's fair, because you read this out loud and most people listening to this be like, hey man, you're going to be wasting her time. So it's cool you got your post-divorce relationship phase out of the way. It feels like you're using her a bit for that. But again, we all kind of do stuff that is in this case, you did what you needed to do and she did what she needed to do, right? She was going through her divorce and you were there, and maybe, I don't know, maybe she wants to make this work and all those things, but like, you can't just be wasting her fucking time either. If you said, hey, how about we just play tennis and not have sex? That would be part of the recession plan, because anyone with an IQ of 2 would be able to figure out like, oh, okay, like this guy just wants to hang and then he isn't in love. I don't know how you're going to handle the love one, man. That one's pretty tough. So I could say a bunch of different things. I could say, hey, you have to tell her immediately. You have to come straight out. You have to explain to her. Don't use your kid as an excuse. I could come up with a list of all the altruistic things that anybody listening to this right now could also come up with. But I think there's one thing that always gets lost in all of this, is that the ego of the emailer, not specific to this emailer, but the ego of the person who's like, oh, I don't want to ruin this person's world. There's a lot of times where like we only see this from our side, but then we turn it into thinking we really care for the other person. And it's kind of like this ego play where it's like, what if I do this? She'll be ruined. And what if I do this? Oh, she'll be ruined and all this stuff. Maybe she just wants the truth. Maybe that's way better, even though it's going to be disappointing. It's like, wait, so you were coming up with all these other scenarios and different ways to play it because of my fucking feelings? Like you're that important? Like you're in charge of my day to day like that? And, I know that I've had moments where I'll be like, well, what if I do this, then I'll have to do this, and then I'll have to do this. And then I'm like 6 down the list. It's like, hey, how about you fucking relax? And maybe she's not that into you. Maybe you're her post-divorce, like slump buster with this whole thing. I think she would totally I think if you were straightforward and you said, hey, this is fucked for me. You're my first date in 15 years. I'm feeling all these emotions, but then I'm sort of wondering, and then it's all these different things. She might feel the exact same way, man. She might. Now, she might freak out and say you're a total asshole. That's also on the table here too. But one of the other lessons in all the breakups and all the stuff over the years is that this is just going to sound a little more direct, but whenever anybody's broken up with me, they didn't really give a shit about how I felt. Right? So why am I going to spend so much time worrying about the other person and keeping them in a relationship that, like, really the unfair thing to do is to stay in something that you don't care about? And, I think all this stuff already. But I would, you got to get it to a point where you can't be wasting somebody else's time. Because if you're just slowly phasing it, and it makes everything you said makes a ton of sense. I think all of us, even those of us that haven't been married, like, I can get how you've come to all these parts. I mean, look, this isn't that much different than somebody being like, hey, the first rebound, girlfriend or whatever. Like, there's just different challenges with it, and your emotions are all over the place, especially if you really, really cared about what you had in the past. So a bunch of different ways to play it, but I still think you land on the same conclusion. It's that, don't waste another person's time.
Yeah, I've never been divorced, but I was trying to think of what I would do if I was this guy.
Do you think you will be?
Statistics aren't great. Child of divorce, we'll just fingers crossed. And
what are the child of divorce rates versus non-divorce rates?
That's something I think maybe we should save for Tuesday, Monday, actually. I think that'd be great.
By the way, I mean, I don't want to get divorced, so I won't even get married. So there you go.
Great.
So I'm making fun of me here.
Great. Feeling great with the June wedding coming up. That's awesome. But what I was going to say, if I was this guy and all of the excuses that you could use, I thought totally damaged goods is the best way to go here. Because you're already sort of preparing like, well, you're already like, well, should I just cut and run or should I like fall back? Either way, like that's always going to be a possibility. I think if you're just like, listen, I'm like, you basically said it right. It's like, you're my first date in 15 years. I don't know what the fuck I'm saying anymore. I've been saying I love you on autopilot forever. I was having a great time and like it slipped out. It's what I'm used to saying. I'm so sorry.
So you're saying admit the love bomb was not accurate.
But through the lens of like I'm damaged goods. It's not that I don't want to be around you. I just feel like I'm all jumbled up here and I'd like to continue going. But you could just the disclaimers out there. And then I think you should see how she responds to the disclaimer of I'm damaged goods. And then you could see, you'll have a much better idea of what to do once you're just like, hey, just so you know, I've been all jumbled up here. But love pan tennis and
all right, but
whatever. The kids
not a
aren't
bad
together.
Play, but that's like the soft opening of wanting to break up because nobody actually says like, hello, how are you? Yeah. I need to tell you something. I like you less and less all the time. I was never in love. I just sort of was caught up in the moment. I want to be direct. Like, you sound like you're weaning off of the thing. And, that could get a little delicate too there. Where it's like, hey, maybe we just tone it down a little bit. Because what this guy needs to answer, honestly, is, do you want to spend any time with this person long term? The answer seems like no. So to do the Stephen A's not going to replace you on the Ryen Russillo show approach of a 2-year slow bleed, that just pisses off everybody way more than just, hey, this is what's going to happen. So, like, if this guy can answer that honestly, what do you actually want from this other person? And it sounds like nothing other than maybe some occasional tennis, which I'm going to guess isn't going to happen when you blow up the rest of this. Then you need to just rip that Band-Aid off. You need to figure, like, you don't have to be so direct, like, hello, I would like to no longer date you. Sorry about saying I loved you. Good luck with the tennis tournament. Nobody talks to anybody that way. But I just think, Ceruti, I know. I
just think people with kids are a little bit more reserved in dating anyway. Aren't they usually just like, he said he hasn't even met them. Like, the kids haven't even met each other. They only have a certain amount of time.
No, that's a boundary. No, that's a boundary that he's putting up that's understandable, but it's really about his boundary of not wanting things to develop a little bit more.
I just think his excuse could fit into that nicely. That's all I mean. I think
if he really liked her, it wouldn't be a problem.
Yeah, no, that's him having a good excuse of why he doesn't want things to progress, because he's like, oh, I don't want the kids, part of that. I don't want that messing with them. I think the kid thing is based on the people. The assumption that people with kids are less likely to want to, I don't know. I've seen it both ways, where sometimes it's shielding them from the relationship part of it, and other people just don't, like, hey, hanging out with this person, they get a kid, try not to fight in the back.
My question would be, how many times you have to figure out what your long-term thing is. You said it at the end there, Ryan, which is exactly what I was going to say, which is, do you feel like this really is just a momentary hesitation, or is this a sign of you really aren't interested in her long-term? Because, how many people have said, hey, I take that back. I went too fast. I don't actually love you. Like, let's just see how it goes. Like, how many of those people actually end up being together long term? None of them. Like, I would say none of them. I mean, listen, sure, like, email and life advice, if you're one of those people, I'd love to hear the story, but it just doesn't seem very likely. So this is a bad sign from relationships to begin with. And I'm not even going to sit here and blame you. Like, companionship is an important thing. And you went from obviously being married for 15 years to now, like, you still want the companionship and you get excited about this new thing. And she's showing you things that you like, but you still deep down know that this isn't the person for you, or the person that's going to be the next long-term deal in your life. And I think you just got to be honest with her. I think you have to just say, hey, I got way too ahead of my skis and I'm sorry. If you really don't know the long-term question, I guess you could string it along. But to Kyle's point and what he was talking about earlier, like, I kind of feel like you just got to rip the Band-Aid off. Like, you can't slow play that, because it's just going to be shitty for both of you and you're going to waste both of your time. So you just have to answer, what is it long term? And I kind of feel like we know the answer to that question.
Yeah. I mean, unless this guy's so fucking screwed up right now from all this stuff. And it doesn't sound like he is, but it could be something where you're like, oh, wait, I actually did freak. And then I freaked again by wanting to break the whole thing off. And then 6 months from now, I kind of miss, hanging out. But it also could be because, I don't know. A lot of how you feel about the person you're with or that you miss has a lot to do with, like, how are things going for you right now? Like, oh, I haven't talked to anybody. I haven't met anybody in a long time. Hey, who I kind of liked is that really short girl that I wasn't super attracted to, but liked sleeping with and playing tennis with. But I don't think that's what this is. I think no. I think it's really hard, man. I can't imagine. I mean, I guess I could on the older part of it, but I have sympathy for people, husband, wife going through the divorce and then trying to kind of figure out what the next steps are. Because I'm getting to that age now too, where my friends, go ahead.
If ESPN Radio just told Ryan that they didn't love him like 2 years before the end, could have solved a lot of problems. That's what I got out of this.
Yeah, I actually would have preferred being the short tennis player on this one with ESPN Radio. Just be like, hey, we don't like you. Okay, cool. Thank you.
All right. Noted. Yep.
Way better.
Yeah.
Yep.
Saved everyone a bunch of headaches for a few years.
I start scoping out happy hours, pal. Maybe a patio.
Also that. Yeah.
Upscale.
Yeah.
Start smoking again.
You'd be surprised how many paths you cross by smoking cigarettes.
Yeah.
What can you do?
I tell kids to smoke all the time. All right. So that's life advice. Lifeadvicerr@gmail.com. That was a long one for you. Hope you enjoyed it. Thanks to Kyle and Steve, the Ryen Russillo podcast, Ringer, Spotify.